What's up everyone? Welcome back to my channel, your go-to spot for everything about life in Canada, especially if you're an immigrant or are planning to become one. If you're wondering what the heck just happened in Canadian politics and how it might affect you, you're in the right place. So as you already know, the federal election just ended and we have a new guy in town as a Prime Minister, Carney. I mean, technically he's not new because he already had been replacing Justin Trudeau after his resignation, but now it's official that he's the Prime Minister of Canada and he will remain in this position until the next election takes place or if something unexpected happens. In this video, I will break down what exactly his plan is and what it means for you. We're going to talk about job opportunities, immigration, cost of living, housing, and of course the relationship with the United States. And stick around until the end of this video because I'm going to share one very important insight that a lot of immigrants miss and lose money this way. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and let's unpack what we can expect from the new government. But to give you some context, let's first discuss the results of this election overall. So the Liberal Party won. They've basically been in power since 2015. But let's be real, things started to get a little bit shaky in 2023. Trudeau's popularity was dropping hard. People were blaming Trudeau for high inflation, housing crisis, uncontrolled immigration, high crime rates, you name it. And he ended up stepping down earlier this year, so this gave the Liberals a second chance. What you need to understand is that according to the polls late last year, the Conservatives were actually ahead of the Liberals, so they most likely would have won had the election taken place in fall. But then the Trump factor came into play, and his return to the White House seriously impacted the Canadian society. All of his terror threats and making Canada the 51st state of America made Canadians really nervous. So the Liberals took advantage of that, and they pitched themselves as the safe hands option, and with Carney being more of a technocrat than a politician, it seems like it worked in their favor. Another factor that I think contributed to their win was the disastrous campaign of the New Democratic Party. So Canadians that would normally vote for the NDP probably ended up giving their votes to the Liberal Party instead, since there's actually some similarities between the parties and they were probably disappointed in the NDP. And you can see it in the results of this election. The NDP got only 7 seats in the parliament. That's 6.3%. A big failure if you compare it to the previous parliament where they had 24 seats. With all of this, the leader of the party, Jagmeet Singh, resigned from his position altogether. So the Liberals won, but with a little bit of a stretch. They got a total of 169 seats in the parliament. That's 3 seats short for the majority government. And this means that they will need support from other parties to pass laws, but the NDP will most likely be on their side. What you need to understand about our new Prime Minister, Carney, is that he's not a typical politician. He used to work in central banks in Canada and the United Kingdom. This is going to be a huge shift from Trudeau because Carney is more about getting the economy back in shape, which could mean some big changes, especially for us immigrants. So now let's dive into the stuff that really matters in our day-to-day life. Let's start with the immigration policies here because of course they're the most relevant to the immigrants, but they're also a big concerns for the Canadians themselves. One of the main points of the Liberals is that they will try to stabilize the number of permanent residents to bring it under 1% of the Canadian population. And they will also try to bring down the number of temporary residents to under 5% of the Canadian population by 2027. Why is this happening? Well, that's just because the population is growing so fast that our cities and systems just can't keep up. Housing, healthcare, schools, all of this is getting stretched out thin. And most of this growth comes from immigration, not birth rates, because in Canada, the average fertility rate per woman is only 1.3 children. So yeah, if you're a temporary resident trying to stay in Canada long term, it is going to get more competitive. Strong applications now matter more than ever. Language skills, education, job experience, and other criteria. Or if you're already a permanent resident or a citizen like myself and you're planning to bring your family in Canada, just expect to be more patient because it's going to take a while. Now, moving on to housing, because let's admit it, it's a total mess out there. Whether you're renting or planning to buy a house, I'm sure you're freaking out about the prices. The problem is that there is a huge shortage of housing in Canada. Not enough housing is being built. And honestly, in some cities, there is just not enough space. For example, I live in Montreal, and technically we're an island, so we have very limited space. And I see a lot of construction going on. Like the last green spaces are now being used to build condos, and I also see condos being built on top of existing businesses or just in their place altogether. What exactly is Carney planning to do? Well, he says that he's going to try to push provinces to build more homes and faster. The Liberals are talking about tying federal funding to housing performance. Basically, they're saying build faster or lose money. They're aiming to build 500,000 homes every year. So yes, expect more construction, especially close to public transit stations, but don't expect miracles overnight. It's going to take a while, although hopefully it's going to get better in the next several years. Fingers crossed. Okay, next in line is the job market, and this is where Carney's experience really kicks in. He is an economist after all, so his focus is going to be on economic growth. I would expect more support for skilled immigrants, especially in the fields like tech, clean energy, healthcare, and construction. If you're already working in these fields, awesome. If not, you might want to consider bringing your skills up or redirecting your career path altogether. If you're a newcomer, learn about credential recognition, certificate programs, anything that's going to boost your value in the job market. Now, cost of living. Everything in Canada now is super expensive. Gas, rent, groceries, utilities, clothing. Average salary in Canada now is under $70,000 per year, and it's very hard to make ends meet. The previous government tried to help this situation by introducing different social programs that did help some people, but they weren't sustainable long term. And they actually pissed off a lot of people because they had to support these programs through their taxes. Carney is taking a different route here, more inflation control and less government spending. For example, he already scrapped the carbon tax, which can help with heating and gas costs. So while things will not get cheaper, at least it probably won't get worse. Let's admit it, this conversation would not be complete without talking about our dear neighbor down south. Yep, Trump is back in the White House, and Carney knows that this can shake the Canadian economy hard. His message is clear. He wants to make sure that Canada is more economically independent from the United States. Although it seems like Trump kind of calmed down a little bit, but I don't think he's going to give up this America First agenda anytime soon. So unfortunately, this can mean more tariffs, less trade cooperation, and all sorts of unpredictable things that can get Canada seriously hurt. So Carney is planning to establish new trade relationships, especially with countries in Europe, in Asia, and also promoting production here in Canada so that we have more made in Canada options to choose from. So what does this mean for you? Well, unfortunately, prices will still go up. This is inevitable, but there's going to be more job opportunities because workers are going to be more in demand, especially in fields like manufacturing, energy, or supply chain. So if you are in those sectors or you're planning to be, pay close attention. After all of these efforts are not just to get back at Trump, but to future-proof Canada, to make it more self-reliant and just generally to be more influential in the world as a whole. So now, let's sum it all up. What does it mean for you as an immigrant? First of all, immigration will stay open, but it's going to be more selective. There's hope that housing support is coming, but it won't happen overnight, unfortunately. Cost of living will remain high, so smart budgeting is still key. There will most definitely be new job opportunities, but mostly in high demand sectors. And remember that federal budget is tight, so don't count on new public programs to kick in. So if you're planning to stay in Canada long term, now's the time to plan smart. And as promised, here's an insight that a lot of immigrants miss. While everybody is so focused on the future, trying to predict what will change, you should be taking advantage of the existing opportunities before things tighten even more. For example, there's a lot of housing incentives and support that a lot of immigrants don't even know they qualify for. If you're a permanent resident or a new citizen, now's the time to explore those programs before the demand spikes. And here are just some examples. First Home Savings Account helps the first home buyers to save for a down payment. You can contribute up to $8,000 annually with a lifetime limit of $40,000. The reason why it's so beneficial is that it's tax deductible. So when you pay your taxes, it's going to be subtracted from your income and you're going to pay less taxes. And then when you want to withdraw that money for your down payment, you're not going to have to pay any taxes either. If you have an RSP or the Registered Retirement Savings Plan, then you can withdraw up to $60,000 for your first home. Last one I want to mention here is the relaxed mortgage rules. Insured mortgage cap increased from $1 million to $1.5 million, and with extended amortization, first-time home buyers can now opt for a 30-year mortgage term instead of 25, which means that the monthly payments will be lower. Alright guys, this was your update for the 2025 federal election and what they mean for us as immigrants in Canada. And be honest with me, what do you think about Mark Carney? Is it better than Trudeau or won't make a difference? Let me know in the comments below. And if you think that this video helped you out, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell button so that you don't miss future updates about life in Canada. And thank you for watching. See you in the next one.